Okay, so our painting for today is this guy here. I just did this kind of for funsies the other day as an option for the paint and sip. And this is I'll show you the reference photo in a second. It's from Mount Hood in Oregon. So it's a very nice Pacific Northwest sunrise kind of mountainscape, which is my kind of cup of tea. So we're really going back to my wheelhouse here. So this is our painting for today. We're going to be doing the background first and then painting in the mountains, and then the foreground we'll be working on this reflection here, which is fun. Okay, so this is our reference painting. Our reference photo is here on my computer. Let's see, you'll see me in the reflection there. Hello. This is a reference photo that I got from Unsplash. If you're watching this later on YouTube, it is linked in the description of this video if you'd like to use this reference photo for yourself. If you're just watching live with me here, if you'd like to take a screenshot, you're welcome to. I will be referring back to this, so this is not the last time you'll see it, but feel free to take a screenshot if you'd like to keep track of that. And then my materials for today. I've got my paper. This is a new-ish paper for me, but I'm really enjoying it. This is the brand Baohong, and I got the artist grade, which I think is the slightly better quality. They've got an academic grade, like student grade, and then artist grade. Either is fine because they're both 100% cotton, which is the most important thing for watercolor paper to be. And it is a watercolor block, which means the pages are all glued together on the sides here. It's a pad of 20 pages, and there's only one little section here that it's not glued, and so you can slide a little knife in there to separate the pages once you're done painting on it. But it's nice because it holds down the paper. The glue on the outside holds the paper down while you're painting, keeps it from warping too much. So I'm really enjoying this paper. It's in my Amazon storefront if you're looking to try that out. You can get it through my Amazon storefront, which is linked to my bio. My paints for today are Winsor Newton. This is my usual little, oh no, it's dirty. Oh no, I didn't clean it before I put it away. I'm gonna do that now. This is my normal watercolor paints. I've used these for a long time, and I've kind of collected a sort of custom sampling of colors of things that I like to use in my paintings. So just gonna clean this up here real quick. That's a little embarrassing. Don't look at that. No, it's fine. You don't see that. And then my brushes, as usual, are Princeton Neptune. I'm going to use a large brush, so I've got this 12 round here today, and then I've got a slightly smaller brush. This is a 4 round, and then I've got a little detail brush, which is a 2 round. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. You don't see that. You didn't see anything. I am a professional artist, and I keep my supplies clean. Just give me 1 second while I do this here, and then we will go ahead and get started. And then for my other materials, just as usual, I've got my cup of water. I've got my paper towels. I've got a pencil, and I've got my hair dryer set to the side here as well because we are going to be working in layers, and sometimes it is boring to watch the paint dry. So if you'd like to grab your hair dryer, you clearly have a couple seconds here while I finish this to grab that. It just helps to speed up the drying time and helps you maintain your sanity while you watercolor paint. So, okay, there we go. It's all clean. It's sparkling clean. It was never dirty. I don't know what you're talking about. Let's get that cleaned up there. Okay. That's done. Can you please demonstrate how to clean up a palette? There you go. You have just seen it. All right, so let's go ahead and put a little drop of water in each of our watercolor pans here. Especially if you're working with dry watercolors, this just helps to start to dissolve the paints, makes it easier to work with them. So I'm just using my brush, putting a little drop in each color. We will probably not be using all of the colors, but it's good to just have them ready anyway. If you have a fancy spray bottle, you could use that too. I just always use my brush. Okay, so we're gonna set that aside, and then we're gonna talk about our pencil sketch here. So for the pencil sketch, we are going to need a horizon line, and then we're going to gently sketch out the main sections of land in this painting. So we are going to get our horizon line here, and then we'll sketch in the mountain shape, and then we'll sketch in this little like hillside, tree covered hill in the foreground here. So this is what we're going to copy here. I'm going to use my pencil and let's see, because of who I am as a person, I am going to use a ruler to measure this out. You do not have to, but we're going to put the horizon line about halfway up the paper. So I'm going to go, my paper is 9 inches long, so I'm going to go 4.5, 4.5, and then connect those lines there for the horizon line. Again, you can just go eyeball it and sketch a generally horizontal line, but I just can't make myself do that. Okay. So then let's sketch in the mountain. So when I'm sketching in mountains, I like to figure out like where the top of it's going to be. And so I'm going to make the top of it right there, probably about a little over a third of the way up the paper from the horizon line, and then a little bit off to the right. And then we'll just create kind of a wiggly line down, a little bit of a top of it, and a wiggly line down. And that might be a little too tall. We'll maybe go a little less of an angle there. And I should be looking at my reference photo while I do this too. Mount Hood is a pretty like pointy mountain, so don't feel like you have to really. Let's go something like that. So you can always do a couple lines and then erase whatever lines you don't want. And then that will come just out to the edge of the paper there. Yes, this will be uploaded on YouTube, as always. So there's my mountain. Feel free to just sketch it a couple times until you're happy with the shape. And then you can always lightly erase. I'm using a kneaded eraser, but you can do this with a regular eraser as well. Just lightly erase so that you can still see the line, but it's not too dark. Okay. And then the only other thing we need for the top section is a hill starting kind of about the same height as the mountain over here on the left. And then it just kind of drops down to about this height as you go across the paper. Trying to buy your palette on Amazon, but it's not available. Oh, that's odd. It should still be available. Are you in the US? Okay. I feel like I need to fix this a little bit. Just gonna, okay, I like that better. Okay, and then for our pencil sketch on the bottom half of this, we are just going to flip what we just drew, just like a mirror image. So I'm going to figure out the top of my mountain here, bring it down about the same distance, and then bring it down to the side this way, and down to the side this way, and then again here, bring that down. We're just trying to create as much of a mirror image as we can, something like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. No, in the UK, that's probably why. I think it's only really available in the US and Canada right now, just because it's a small palette, and you know, we're not moved to global yet. Okay, that should be good there. So you can see we've got the same thing on the top half as we do on the bottom half, and that's key for water reflections. Once you're happy with your sketch, oh my God, I keep just moving this a little bit. Okay, that's better. We are going to mix up some colors for the background, so for the sky and the water reflection here. So go to your watercolor palette, and in here we are going to mix 3 colors. Our first one is going to be just some light pink, so I'm going to use magenta, and I'm going to just get a little bit of paint and add plenty of water. We want a pretty light pink color. This is just for at the horizon line. Okay, then we're going to mix up a purple, kind of lavender color. So I'm going to use ultramarine blue and mix a little bit of magenta into that. I'm going to keep it more on the blue side. So I'm just adding a little bit of magenta at a time until it looks kind of blue-purple-ish. And we're going to add plenty of water to this as well. Okay, and then our last color is going to be a pretty saturated blue. So I'm just going to use plain ultramarine blue for the top of the painting. And I think I might add just a little bit of magenta into that as well, just a tiny bit. So make sure you're mixing enough of each of these colors to cover about a third of your paper. So again, watered down, concentrated. Less water in this one. And that was magenta, ultramarine blue, and a bit of magenta, ultramarine blue, and just a tiny bit of magenta. If you don't have magenta, red will be fine. You can substitute red for what I've just said. Okay, so for this painting, we're going to be creating a gradient. There's a couple keys to making a gradient, as I can show you in this painting here. You can see this gradient we have going from this pink here to the purple and into the blue. A couple keys, use a large brush. Make sure you have as big of a brush as you can, kind of handle. We're going to start with the lightest color down here with the magenta and transition up into the darker colors. And you can always go back and blend with a clean, damp brush, but I recommend not working with it too much. You'll start to create too much texture. And when it starts to dry, you just got to let it dry. So those are a few different tips for you for the gradients. I'm going to go ahead and do it, and I'll explain what I'm doing, but if you want to watch me first, I will give you a minute to catch up afterwards, okay? So I'm going to go in with my light pink, that watered down magenta, and I'm just going to go straight over what we sketched already, right at the horizon line here. Put in a stripe of about a third, covering about a third of the sky section, about a third of the paper above the horizon line. And I'm trying to get plenty of paint on my paper here, so I'm really loading up my brush and putting a lot of paint on my paper. That gives me a little extra time to blend everything together. Okay, then I'm not even going to wash my brush, just switching over to the purple color. We're going to fill in the next third with the purple color. Again, adding plenty of water, or adding plenty of paint to the paper. I'm using horizontal strokes as I work my way up. And then I'm going to go into my blue, put that up here at the top. Okay, so then I can clean off my brush. I'm going to remove a lot of the water using a paper towel, but it's still a little bit damp. Then I'm going to go from the bottom and using horizontal strokes, just blend everything together, working my way up. Okay, so now I've got a pretty good gradient going there. And I can do that, I might do that one more time. Again, starting from the bottom, and then horizontal strokes working my way up. Okay, and I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm going to leave it alone. Another thing you can do to gently blend those colors together is pick up your paper and move it in a little bit of a circle, like a slow circle. That will help to blend those colors together a little bit as well. Clean up my desk here. Okay, and we're just going to lay that flat and let it dry. So if you were just watching me, you can go ahead and do that. Again, we started with that watered down pink, filled in about a third of the sky section. Then we switched to that purple, filled in the next third, and then we switched to the blue and filled in the last third. And then I used a clean, damp brush and started from the bottom and blended everything together using horizontal brush strokes. And we're just going to let it dry. Yeah, it sure is. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. Otherwise, feel free to go ahead and do that if you're painting along with me. I'll give you a minute or two. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put those in the comments while we wait. I will do my general plugs real quick while you guys ask your questions. My name's Hannah. I'm a professional artist. If you'd like to support me in any way, that would be lovely. I rely on people like you supporting me just to pay my rent and my bills, so I really appreciate it in any way that you want to. If you would like to support me in any way, you can go to the link in my bio, my link tree, and if you click on that, you'll see a few things. The first thing you'll see is a link to my watercolor book, which is called Watercolor Wanderlust. It is basically these paint and sip sessions in book form. So it's got 24 landscape paintings, step by step, so you can follow along with them at your own pace. So I'd highly recommend checking out the book. It is in that link tree. It would make a great gift as well if you're looking for a gift for somebody who is into art. Yeah, highly recommend. People have been loving it. So please do check that out. You'll also find in there a link to my Etsy shop, which is where I sell all of my artwork and prints and bookmarks and such. I want to show you guys a couple bookmarks I just painted, which are now available in the Etsy shop, along with the printed versions. So I would love for you to check those out. You'll also find my Patreon in that link tree if you'd like to support me on a monthly basis. You can get an extra tutorial every month and some extra art every month if you support me on Patreon. So that's a great way to connect with me more and get some free included art every month. And then my Amazon storefront is also in my link tree if you'd like to check out my art recommendations, my art supply recommendations. Last thing I will say, at the very top is going to be these 5 symbols. The little $ one is linked to my PayPal. If you'd like to leave me a tip or a gift for today's session, people usually leave small amounts like $5, $10. That would be lovely. You can do that through the PayPal link there, that $. And yeah, make sure you subscribe on YouTube as well. I will say now too that Paint and Sip will not be back for another 3 weeks because I have things going on. I'm a busy girl. And so I will be definitely doing some pre-recorded tutorials and stuff that will be uploaded to YouTube on the weekends. So since I can't do the lives, I will be definitely uploading some other stuff to YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're not already so that you don't miss those. Okay, thank you for listening to the plugs. I will just check back and see what questions we have. What paper do you recommend? There's quite a few different brands that are fun. I really like Arch's watercolor paper, but really the main thing is 100% cotton watercolor paper. If it says it's 100% cotton, then it's probably pretty good. I like cold press, but some people prefer hot press. It's just a texture difference. Yeah, so there's lots of different options for you, but I think the main thing to look for is 100% cotton. Good question. Okay. Don't you have to do the same thing for the reflection? We are doing a similar thing, but we're going to add a color, so I'm just waiting for everybody to catch up. The book is great. If you don't have a full hour, I do it later every day. That's a great idea. Nice. What's your YouTube? I missed it if you just mentioned it. It is Hannah Art and Prints. It's also linked in my link tree. If you want to just go there, it'll take you straight there. Yes, this will be uploaded to YouTube later. Okay, let's go ahead and mix up our colors. So we're going to keep these 3 colors. If you ran out of any of them, go ahead and make a little bit more. And then I think I'm doing pretty good on these, so I don't think I'm going to mix any more. Then we need to make one more color. So I'm going to grab some ultramarine blue, and I'm going to mix it with Payne's Gray, which is a really dark gray. If you don't have Payne's Gray, black will do just fine. We're going to mix those 2 colors together to just make a dark blue. I'll show you why in a second after we mix this up. Somebody's listening to California Girls. Okay, so there's that color. If we go to our reference photo here, water is always a little bit darker than the sky if you're painting a reflection. So if you can see here, the sky is pretty light, but at the very bottom of the painting or the reference photo, it gets real dark right down here, almost black. And so we want to add an extra color as we do this reflection gradient to signify that the water gets darker than the sky. So that's why we're adding one more color here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is to turn my paper the other way. Just makes it a little bit easier. And we're going to do the same thing that we just did, just adding one more color. So I'm going to go into my magenta. Maybe get a little bit more of that before I start. Okay, so magenta, and now this time I'm going to cover about 1/4 of the paper instead of 1/3, since we have 4 colors now. Something like that. Then I'll go into my purple. Again, cover about 1/4. Then go into the blue. And then go into the dark blue. And you'll notice I'm not even cleaning my brush as I do this. There's no point because we're trying to blend these colors together on the paper anyway, so there's no need to clean my brush in between these colors. And I'm just gonna really make sure I got a lot of paint on the paper here, especially down here at the bottom, just to get that saturation. Okay, and then I'm gonna clean off my brush, take off some of the excess water, but keep it a little bit damp. And then just use the horizontal brush strokes back and forth up the page. Okay. And that's looking pretty good, but maybe I'll do it one more time. There we go. Okay, and again, remember you can also pick up your paper and tilt it gently in different directions to get those colors to blend together smoothly while it's still wet. You can hold it this way for a few seconds. Hold it this way for a few seconds. Thank you guys for helping me out with the questions. I appreciate it. Okay, and then we can just let that dry. I can turn my paper the other way. Maybe while we're waiting, I'll clean off my workspace here. Which blue is that? It's dropping out in a cool way. It's ultramarine blue that we've used for this whole, all the blues in the painting. Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of texture we're getting here at the top, but it's kind of turning into a bit of a textured look, which is not a bad thing. I really, the watercolor palette that I designed with Artistro and this specific sketchbook, this Etcher sketchbook, I get such like pretty even, like perfect gradients, and I'm not entirely sure why, but like all of the paintings in here that I use that watercolor set with, I've got another couple of good examples in here too. Yeah, these, I just get like these really smooth, like beautiful gradients, and I'm not sure why. Like this interaction between this paper specifically and that Artistro watercolor set. I mean, the Artistro watercolor set does blend really nicely with just making gradients in general, but it really like stands out on this paper. This is cold press, I think. It's not very textured, which could be the thing, but I think this is cold press paper, marketed as cold press paper. But that could be it, because it's really not very textured. Do you prefer ultramarine over phthalo blue? Yes. I really don't use phthalo blue all that much anymore. I used to, and I just feel like it made my painting it's such a jarring blue to me. That's my like hot take about phthalo blue. And if we want to really go down the rabbit hole real quick here, I'll show you. This is phthalo blue. And it just is so bright. And I think that's good for like tropical seascapes and stuff like that, where you really want like a bright blue. but it's just like if we were trying to use it for this, you can see how it doesn't match this kind of a purple gradient. It doesn't go into purple very well. So if I was gonna do a painting with lots of green and yellow and stuff, maybe I would use phthalo blue, but I was using it as a sky blue for a long time, and it just really doesn't match a lot of the colors that I use in my paintings. So I generally use ultramarine blue, and you can see the difference between those there. And ultramarine blue is a warmer blue, and it just looks so much prettier. So that's my hot take about phthalo blue, and why I hardly ever use it, because it just is jarring. Good question. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just hit this with my hairdryer and make sure it's completely dry before we move on. So if you have a hairdryer as well, you can do the same. Hopefully TikTok will exclude the noise from the hairdryer, so I'll continue talking while I do this. But watching paint dry is not one of my hobbies. I prefer to have it dry as soon as I'm done with it. So we're just gonna do this for a second. If anybody has any other questions, let me know. Or not. We can just sit here and listen to the hairdryer. How long have you been watercoloring? I have been watercoloring for, my whole life, really. Like, I don't remember when I specifically picked up a watercolor paint. I've just really enjoyed art my whole life, so I don't think I can really tell you a specific time. What's your favorite kind of landscape to paint? It's this one. It's like a Pacific Northwest mountains and water reflection classic landscape. It's something exactly like this. These are my favorite types of landscapes to paint. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and clean off a couple spaces on my palette here just so that I have a little room. This is my first time doing watercolor. That's awesome. I hope you're enjoying it. There's a lot to learn about watercolor, and there's a big learning curve, but it's really, really fun once you really get the hang of it. And it gives you such cool effects that you don't get in any other medium. Working on your Mount Fuji tutorial right now. Just did the Smoky Mountain one from last weekend. Love it. Perfect. I'm so glad to hear that. Okay, so now we are going to go ahead and paint in the mountain, and we'll just do a little discussion here with the reference photo. So we can see the mountain here. If we zoom in, we have a snow-covered mountain. We are going to do this in 2 layers with our watercolor paints, because that way we can get the snow and the mountain in the background. So let's just go ahead and mix up those 2 colors. First color is going to be ultramarine blue, a little bit of red. I'm using alizarin crimson, just a little bit of red and a little bit of brown. Just a tiny bit of those 2 colors. And we're gonna mix 2 colors, but they're gonna be the same color recipe. So this one we're gonna add a lot of water to. And then we're gonna mix another version where we add not as much water. So again, that was ultramarine blue, just a tiny bit of red and a tiny bit of brown. And then this version, we're not gonna add very much water to it. So it should still mostly look blue. It shouldn't be brown or gray. It should still be mostly blue, just a little bit less like bright blue. So there's the darker color swatched for you. Kind of a dark gray. It's hard to see on the camera exactly what color that is, but it's kind of a dark bluish gray. And then we've got our lighter color here, adding plenty of water to it. And that'll look like that. Maybe add a little bit more pigment to that. There we go. Something more like that. The brand I use is Winsor Newton. And what I do is I have these pans here, and when I run out of the paint in the pans, I just refill it with liquid watercolors from a tube. So I've got all these tubes to refill my paint pans. So it's a little different than like the extruded, like really hard pan consistency that you can buy. It's more soft because it comes out of a tube. And you can let it dry when it comes out of a tube and it reactivates with water, just like normal. But it's a little cheaper and you can fill up the pans individually. So that's what I do. So, again, that was ultramarine blue, just a little bit of alizarin crimson and a little bit of brown. Same thing here, just less water. So it's the same color recipe, just a little bit less water in this one and more water in this one. Okay, so we're gonna start with the lighter one. And we are just going to fill in the entire mountain shape that we have here. Remember to add little textures and bumps and stuff along the outline of the mountain. And then just bring the color just a little bit past that little hill that we sketched in the foreground. It doesn't need to be pretty. We're covering that up later. Okay. So something like that, and then we're gonna let that dry all the way. Here's my, jeez, someone's really revving the engine out there. I use my the Artist Row set now. Good, I'm glad you like it. That makes me happy to hear. I'm actually going to use a clean, wet brush and just blend the bottom of this mountain out a little bit, just so that we don't have any harsh lines in our painting. But again, we're covering that up later, so it doesn't need to look pretty. Okay, and we're gonna let that dry all the way. I'm gonna use a hairdryer in just a minute, just to speed things along. It's cool colors. Yeah, I really like this color combo. It's nice, satisfying pinks and purples. All right, here comes the hairdryer. Just need to get this dry. Can we see the reference again? Yes, I'll show you in just a second. Sipping on. It's a sparkling water. We got a nice spin drift going. Nothing super exciting. Okay, let's go back to our reference photo here. And I really zoomed in. So here we are. Hello, there we are. So we've painted in our sky and our water. Now we're working on the mountain. Then we're gonna paint in this mountain in the foreground, and then we're gonna do the reflection. So we're getting there. Why is that not focused? There we go. You do carvings? That's really cool. That's awesome. Okay, so once that first layer on the mountain is completely dry, we can switch over to our darker color. And I'm gonna continue using my 4-round, but if you'd like a smaller brush for a little bit more control, you can switch over to that too. So, getting back into this blue color here, we're going to start to add the textures and sort of negative space around the snow. So again, if we zoom in here, we're going to paint in all of the dark blue that you see. So all these rocks and stuff, all these little, I don't know what you'd call these, ridges and stuff without snow on them. That's what we're going to paint. So I'm going to try and put this here so that you can see it while we paint this section there. Okay. So there, you should be able to see both my painting and the reference photo. If you should be able to get rid of the comments so you can see both. Okay, so I'm just going into that darker blue and using the point of my brush. I'm not loading up my brush too much with paint. I'm keeping a little bit of paint off of it. And I'm just gonna start adding kind of the general shapes that I see. I'm not trying to copy it exactly, but You should be able to hide comments by swiping a certain way, or left or right, I can't remember which, or pressing and holding on the screen and saying clear screen. I think it just depends on the phone that you have and the version of TikTok that you have. Okay, so just adding the final little dots and details that I want to add here. Just using super, super light pressure to add these final little details, just really fine lines. Okay, something like that. I did not breathe that entire time. Okay. See if we can answer some questions here. How long does it take to dry without the hairdryer? Yes, someone else said just depends on the weather and humidity. It also depends on how much water you've put on the paper. Obviously, if you put more water on the paper, it takes longer. Just created snow like magic. Thank you so much. Just a little negative space painting. Yeah, so it did look dark at the first, but because we have another layer on here, now it looks correct. But you can see even in this reference photo how dark this value is. Even though you know it's snow in your brain, and you're like, oh, snow is white, that's the color that it should be. You really have to look at what the actual color is. If we zoom in here, you can see it's really dark gray. So that's the key of painting, really, is to avoid those times when your brain wants to trick you into painting something the way it knows it should look instead of how it actually looks in real life. Mine does not look like that. That's okay. It doesn't have to look like mine to be a good painting. I've also had a lot of practice, and I've also painted this painting before, so I know what I'm doing. But that doesn't mean your painting does not look perfectly good on its own. I need to work on my negative space painting. Do you have any suggestions? It's a boring advice, but just do it. Like, try more negative space painting. It's really it's kind of a mind twister. And so being able to do it the snow is not as hard because you just have to layer from light to dark with watercolor. And that's just how you're painting the rocks. So it's not necessarily negative space, but, just generally, painting negative space is tough on the brain, so just doing it a bunch will help keep you on track there. Yes, the Mount Fuji tutorial is similar. Yeah, I'll always paint mountains with snow on them this way because the snow is always going to be the lightest, so you have to paint the snow first and then paint in the stuff that's darker around it. It's just the way that watercolor has to work. Okay, let's paint in this hillside here with this dark color. This is gonna be really easy because it's just one color, and we're just gonna do a flat wash here. So in my palette here, I'm just gonna go right over what I had before, and this color is just going to be blue and Payne's gray or black if you don't have Payne's gray. And we're just gonna make a real dark blue color, adding very little water. You can see that's really thick paint there because you can see the palette underneath when I stir it. So that should look like this. Really nice dark, even darker than the color that we just used to fill in the mountain. Then I'm going to load up my brush with this, and I'll zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to use my brush, and I'm going to use the very tip of it in a sort of chopping motion right here where I want the hillside to be, to create a tree line. So you can see I'm kind of chopping down in a vertical line at the paper to create these tops of trees. And I'm just trying to make them different heights, create kind of an interesting outline there. And then we're just going to fill in everything below with a flat wash. A lot of round noise today. I'm memorizing all your color mixing formulas. Good, I'm glad it's helpful. Once you kind of get your color mixing down, you won't have to rely on me as much. It becomes more of a habit. And it's really fun to all of a sudden know how to mix colors to match what you want to do. So then when we get down here, we're getting more towards the distance here. I'm using much smaller vertical strokes as I get down here below the mountain, just to make just little tiny trees. Very little variation in the heights now, because it's getting so far away, we're not going to see those taller trees. So that's a good thing to keep in mind as we get towards the distance. Really push that perspective. Okay, and once you've filled in, there you go. Once you've filled in that, we can just keep filling in all the way to the horizon line here. Bob Ross of watercolors, exactly. I learned a lot from watching his videos. Even if you're not an oil painter, or even if you don't want to copy his style exactly, you can learn a ton from just watching his videos on how to layer paintings specifically, and how to just sort of shortcut certain things in not a bad way. In like, here's how to paint a tree, and you can just repeat this process every time. And it'll turn out slightly differently every time, and you'll get trees. And, you know, it's just an easy way to do it. So, would recommend. Plus, they're so relaxing to watch. I used to fall asleep to those. Okay. So, there we go. We've got our layer of trees. How's everyone doing with this? If you're painting along with me, give me a quick little update how your painting is going. If you have any questions, would love gouache tutorials from you. I've got a couple pre-recorded, I think, on YouTube. If not, I will make a couple. I don't like to do them for paint and sip because not everybody has gouache or knows how to use them. The granulation is crazy. I don't know how that happened. I'm not sure why that occurred. Probably the interaction between the paint and paper, but it is quite a lot of granulation. I'm not sure. I don't think I did anything to make that happen. How often do you do live tutorials? I usually do them every other Saturday. We're kind of on an awkward schedule right now because this is the second Saturday in a row that we've done this, and then I will not be able to do one for the next 3 Saturdays. So we're on kind of an awkward schedule, but usually every other Saturday at this time. What is gouache? It is a opaque water-based paint, similar to watercolor, but opaque, so you can paint light on top of dark, which you can't do with watercolor. It's really fun. It's a really, really fun medium. I'll show you an example of gouache while we're waiting. Let's see if I've got one in my sketchbook here. I think I do. At least I thought I did. Is it back here? Ah, there we go. Here's a gouache example. So it's a pretty, like, it's a matte finish, and you can get these really beautiful, like, flat layers to your painting. So that's just a little sketchbook experiment that I did. But you'll notice, like, these sections here, this is painting light paint on top of dark. So there you go. Okay, let's go ahead and go into our reflection here so that we finish on time. The key to this reflection is using horizontal brush strokes and light pressure with your brush. So I would like to just show you. I'm going to use my 4-round brush. We're going to go back to the exact same colors that we used for the mountain. If you ran out of them, just mix a little bit more. Again, it was ultramarine blue, a little bit of red, and a little bit of brown. And then those 2 shades where we have one with lots of water and one with very little. So just make a little bit more of that paint like I'm doing right now if you need to. And then if we look at our reference photo here, we're zooming in on the reflection part. We've got this lighter area here, which is kind of reflecting the lightest area of the mountain. And then the rest of it is that dark blue. And you can see we're trying for this texture around the outside. This kind of, we're going to use brush strokes to emulate this kind of, I don't know, dash look to show the reflection of the mountain in the water. Okay, so if we really zoom in, that's the texture we're going for. And notice how it gets much smaller and grainier as you get up towards the horizon line here, and it's thicker and more clear down here. So those are a couple things to keep in mind. Again, I'm going to try and just keep this, I'll move my palette here, I'll keep that in the frame. Just give me a second here, reorganize. There we go. You can mix watercolors and gouache because they are made of very similar things. You can mix them together. Okay, so I'm going to start with my lighter blue, the lighter mountain color, with my brush. And I'm going to fill in this side of the mountain. And as I get towards the edge of my sketched area for the mountain, I'm going to use the flattest part of my brush and just lightly use horizontal strokes and create little dashes coming out of the shape. And I'm just using like the lightest touch possible on my paper. I am gonna have to turn it just a little bit so that I can do this with my hand. And then we're not worrying about what it's turning into. We're gonna cover that up later. Don't worry about any of this. We're just worrying about the mountain shape right now and the texture of the reflection. Okay, and then I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. And right about here, I'm gonna switch over to that darker blue and continue filling in over here, and just let those 2 colors blend together on the paper. And continue adding that little dash technique around the edges. Okay, there we go. And then I'll just add in some little extra dashes right around here. There we go, something like that. I'm gonna leave it alone. There we go, something like that. I'm gonna leave it alone. What if I use water with acrylic paint? So acrylic paint won't act like watercolor does when you water it down. You just won't get the same effect because it's made of different things. So you can still, you try it. There's no rules against trying it, but gouache behaves more like watercolor when you water it down. So you can still, you try it. There's no rules against trying it, but gouache behaves more like watercolor when you water it down. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and use a hairdryer and dry this just so that we get done on time. But we've only got one more step after this. You can probably guess what it is. So, going back to this color that we used for this tree section here, I'm going to make a little bit more of it. And we're going to do the same thing. I'll zoom this out a little bit. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. It's a bit of a trick fitting both of those in there. So we're going to do the same thing. You can see that the tree reflection just follows the same pattern, those dots and dashes, and then kind of fades out into the reflection in the distance, okay? The only thing I want to keep in mind is that we have this little bit of like water reflected right here. I'm going to leave that open. So as I'm painting along the horizon line here, I'm just going to leave a little space, starting about here, and just leaving a little space at the horizon line to show that reflected water. Like that. And then we'll fill that in with something later. But otherwise, you're just going to do flat washes throughout the reflection shape, and then when you get to the edge, doing the same thing that we just did, using those really tiny, really light pressure dashes to show the areas that reflect in the water. And I'm gonna miss any questions that are being asked right now because I'm really focusing, but I promise I'll go back and check just in case. Paint. Okay, and then as we get down here, it's just going to be very thin horizontal lines, not very much of that like dash texture. because we're getting farther away, so we won't see as much texture in that reflection. And that just really brings it together, doesn't it? That really makes it look more realistic when you get to that point. Okay. There we go. I'm pretty happy with that. And then last little thing, I'm going to go back to that lighter mountain color. So the watered down blue, red, and brown. And as soon as this paint is dry around that little section that we left, I'm just going to use that to fill in that section, that little section at the horizon line that we left alone. I'm going to fill that in with the lighter mountain color. There you go. Okay, let me go back and see if there's any questions here. Yes, this is, I think it is Trillium Lake. It is Mount Hood in Oregon. Let's see what they said about the place. They just said Mount Hood, but I think it is. I think that is the place that this is based on. Okay, good question. Do you do custom prints if someone sent you a photo of landscape? Yes, I do commissions. If you would like a commission, I have a little Google form in my link tree that you can fill out if you would like a commission. Okay, good. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. And I think that's all for our painting here. I am going to go ahead and sign it in the bottom corner with a nice dark Payne's Gray and my brush. If you'd like to add little things like some birds in the sky or a little boat in the water or anything like that, you are welcome to. Feel free. Oh. Sorry, gotta verify I am still live. There we go. Are you gonna do the rock at the bottom? No, I think I'm going to leave alone. I'm not going to add the rock. I feel like it's just one little rock, and that makes sense in the photograph, but I don't think it'll make sense in the context of this painting. So I'm just going to leave it as a nice pure reflection there. There we go. I feel like the forests blend more together with the mountain and the lake. How can you blend more? You can blend by using a clean, damp brush around the outside of those brush strokes. I like having the layers a little bit more separated because it really shows the reflection. But if you'd like to have them more blended, you can do that with the a clean, damp brush. Okay, there we go. Less is more. Yeah. Okay, then I'm going to show you guys how I detach the painting from the watercolor block. So when you order these from Baohong, they send you a little leaf plastic thing, which is very nice of them to do, but you don't need it. You can also use like a butter knife or like a palette knife or something. And then I find the spot where the pages aren't glued together, which is just this little spot at the top. Slide the leaf in there, and then we just gently separate the paper from the rest of the block, going around the outside. The photo has ripples at the bottom in the water. If you add those, does it make it look weird? It can, and I like to just, I don't know, I think it's high risk, medium reward to do that, because I think we have shown that this is a reflection, right? Like with the details that we've added so far, it's clear that this is a reflection in water. And so sometimes I feel like adding more details of that in the reflection is just kind of over the top, and sometimes it just makes it look a little weird. So yeah, so then there we have our free paper for the next time, and we've got our loose painting there. If there are any other questions, I'll answer those, but otherwise, I really appreciate you guys joining me here today. Remember, Paint and Sip will not be back for another 3 weeks because I'm a busy gal, but I will be uploading some things on YouTube. So if you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you don't miss those, please do that. It is linked in my link tree. You can also just search Hannah Art and Prints, and I will come up there. This Paint and Sip will be uploaded there later today as well. And then please do check out my link tree. I have my watercolor book, Watercolor Wanderlust, available for you through that link tree if you'd like my tutorials. This is my tutorials in a book form. I have my Etsy shop in there too if you'd like to shop my art. I've got my Patreon if you'd like to support me on a monthly basis. I've got my Amazon storefront if you want to check out the art supplies that I recommend. And if you'd like to leave me a tip or a gift for today's session, there's a little $ symbol at the top of my link tree. When you see it, you can click that and it'll take you right to my PayPal. If you'd like to leave like $5, $10, or even $1 just to say thank you, you're welcome to do that as well. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and painting. I will stick around and answer questions, but this is just the end of the video here. So thanks for coming, and I'll see you next time.